Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Laura Basha. It is December 2020, the last month of this extraordinary year. And I wanted to say a few things to complete the year, a few things that capture the essence of this time of year, as well as maybe point to a few of the things that I have realized even more deeply being in 2020 with all of us sheltering at home, globally dealing with a circumstance that most of us have not ever dealt with in this life. You know, how to maintain one's positive perception during the challenges of this time, some of them small, some of them great, some of them frustrating to wear a mask, some of them losing loved ones to the virus, and all those challenges in between that we as human beings always are dealing with in life, with or without a pandemic. And I also wanted to really point to the mystery and magic of what we call the holiday season, which is actually the depth of winter, representing the darkest and shortest days, symbolically giving us the opportunity to get quiet and go within. And I have, as you know, if you've listened to any of the videos or been to my website, I've been a psychologist for many years. I'm a published author and a professional artist, so there's a lot of my work really has always connected to the creative source, whether I was painting or writing or speaking to groups or working with clients. The measure of success in any of those endeavors is how much capacity do I have to be present? How much capacity do I have to listen from a depth that is before the form of my personal thinking? How much can I be present and listen to a client? How much can I be present and listen for what I don't know? Whether it's bringing in the right words to express a phrase for the book, or whether it's creating the composition in such a way that it has an impact and power and balance and harmony that's necessary to have the piece work. All of this requires a kind of quietness of standing in the realm of the formless. I was going to say standing before form. That may be a little confusing. Form is that which is manifest from the formless, the one substance out of which all things are formed according to the character of our thought. I've worked with leaders for many years. I've worked with hundreds of people articulating their personal purpose in their life. I've written about it in my book, The Inward Outlook. And I would say now that it would be even a more simple process to arrive at one's true purpose in life. Because as I continue to work with people and continue to deal with my own patterns, which is really all the work there is to deal with our own patterns. You deal with yourself. You pretty much can deal with anybody who comes into your world. And the practice that actually has you be your purpose in life is practicing being present in the moment with no attention to thinking from the past. What I would say now, which I wouldn't have even said a year ago or several years ago when I was more out in the world with people, the practice now is to practice not thinking. Now that's saying something, because thinking is part of what it means to be a human being, just like the heart beating is part of what it means to be a human being, which is what the breathe. We don't think about how to breathe. We don't think about how to expand our lungs. We don't think about those things. The body just miraculously creates that so that we can live healthy lives on this planet. The other thing that the body does that we don't necessarily consider is the body produces thoughts. The brain, the mind, the intellect continuously produces thinking, just like the lungs continue to expand and contract, and just like the heart keeps beating, the mind keeps producing thinking. So, it's not so much that we stop the mind from producing thinking, as it is we turn our attention away so that we are not listening to the thinking that is incessantly going on. That's a practice. One can practice it through a regular meditation, which I enjoy and which I find is very beneficial to me, kind of a formal meditative practice. However, there's another way of practicing being present, which isn't so formal, which might be even more useful and more effective in one's day-to-day life. And that is to just go through your daily activities with no attention to thought, to be very present with what you're actually doing. It's another way to say that is you are more attentive to who you're being while you're doing things. So if you're washing the dishes or putting them in the dishwasher, you're just very present with the dishes and the water that's coming out of the faucet and the sponge that perhaps you're using on the dishes before you put them in the dishwasher, which is kind of silly, but we do tend to do that. Placing them in the dishwasher, placing them in such a way that they don't put too much weight one on the other. We could practice it if many of us are going on daily walks while we're socially distancing. So one could practice while walking from maybe point A to point B. Maybe you get on, you're walking, say, a block in your neighborhood, and from one corner of the block to the next corner of the block, you just notice the trees or the bushes growing on the sidewalk. Or if you're in the city, one of the things I love that Eckhart Tolle says is, find a lamppost And from the one lamppost to the next lamppost, just practice being with the walk. So you're noticing the buildings, or you're noticing maybe there's shops that you're walking by, and you're just noticing the people that you're walking by, but you're not paying attention to thinking. And it's just for a short period of time, so that you start to see that it is possible to not be obsessively thinking. And one of the benefits of this, in practicing this, because your practice will get interrupted by thought. You will notice that you're thinking. That thinking may be as simple as a thought that says, "Oh my gosh, I can do this." I mean, it's like always trying. The automatic thinking is always trying to break through and be heard. But in practicing that, one of the things you will notice is that there's this automatic thinking, and then there's you that is practicing not paying attention to that thinking. That's the eternal self. That's you. That's the true essence of who you are, is that part of you that's noticing that you're thinking, or that part of you that's noticing that you're not thinking. As soon as you notice one way or the other, you're outside of the automatic thinking mechanism, and you are connected to that eternal self. That self that is before form, that self that is not attached to our ego identification. How do I look? Is my hair good? Is my clothing good? I mean, how successful am I in life? How how am I doing as a parent? What kind of car am I driving? All those things that we sort of identify with. Now, they could be things we identify with because we feel like we look really great, or we have been very successful in the eyes of the world, or we feel like we don't look really great, or we have not been successful in the eyes of the world, or we're highly educated, or we can't read. All of those ways of seeing ourselves are attachments to the identity that we say that we are. This Laura Basha, that's a psychologist, that's, a doctor of psychology and a published author and a mother of two and a grandmother and a stepmother to 3 and step grandmother to 7, and I have a fabulous little dog, and I'm married, and I live in this particular. All of that is a short-term conversation called Laura. However, the short-term conversation called Laura has a long-term vision, which is that there's a revolution and an awakening in human consciousness. And there's a lot of us who are aligned in having that happen on the planet. So I have created my books and paintings and videos that will probably outlive this short-term conversation called Laura. I will be gone in the next couple decades or 3 decades. I will be gone. And people will remember me for a little while, and they'll be sad and they'll be crying. And then one day somebody's going to say, "Let's have lunch." And Laura will be, a distant memory at best. But even the books and even the paintings and even the videos are long-term conversations, not eternal conversations. So the way out of hell is to practice aligning yourself with that eternal essence of who you are. That's why practicing being present in the now, in this moment, with no attention to thinking from the past, is so important, because that's the place where safety lives. That's the place where security lives. That's the only unchangeable realm, is the eternal. And as you practice aligning with that and being present with that state of consciousness, if you will, that eternal consciousness that is unfettered by form, that's where you find respite from fear, and respite from pain, and respite from suffering, because none of that exists there. That's all created through the human being that we are. So practicing being while in this human form allows us to escape to some degree from suffering. It's our thinking that, for the most part, creates suffering. It doesn't mean that there aren't circumstances that are traumatic. It does not mean that there aren't challenges that are overwhelming sometimes. It does mean that we don't have to be suffering through those circumstances. I mean, part of the deal for being on the planet is learning to deal with challenges so that we can grow and evolve. I remember my spiritual teacher, Mrs. Jarvis, many years ago said, "If you don't have a problem, call me. I will pray with you." So, without a problem, there's no evolution. But we are at a place now where we can start to see that the next phase of evolution is to be in the world but not of it. If you are familiar with that great teaching. To be in the world and not of it is to be able to deal with the challenges, to be able to be present and realistic about what one is up against, but at the same time to be maintaining a state of consciousness that is aligned with the eternal. And the eternal has all those divine attributes that we're looking for: peace, love, wisdom, compassion, joy. All of those divine attributes that are eternal states. So however you can create a practice for yourself, however you can carve out some time to be outside the realm of time, and practice just being present with exactly where you are, with no attention to thinking, is going to as you deepen this practice, it's going to be giving you an unflappable sense of well-being and a sense of peacefulness that is always available to us. We've just turned our attention too frequently to the inner machinations of our thinking. And by the way, a lot of what's outside of us, like the media, a lot of the stuff we see on TV, a lot of the stuff we read in the newspaper, certainly a lot of the stuff we see online, is like an external expression of internal thinking. Somebody wrote something, somebody's saying something, and basically all you're getting is their perspective on whatever is the thing they're talking about. And we listen to that like that's the reality, instead of taking whatever information we need to be reality-oriented, but listening from a state of quietness and not knowing, the creative source of well-being. So during this holiday season, I wish you joyful holidays, however you celebrate them. And I hope this was helpful in pointing all of us in the direction of listening for quietness, listening for stillness, listening for that eternal realm of, of, of peace that is equally everywhere present. We're looking at each other through it right now. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful, safe holiday season. Sending you love and blessings. Take care. Bye.